Hello and welcome to the 4th issue of Random Comic Review, and today we're looking at Doctor Who number 7 from April 1985, published by Marvel Comics, with a premium cover price of $1.50. The television series Doctor Who premiered on Saturday, November 23, 1963, and ran until 1989. It made a comeback in 2005 and is still in production at the time of this recording. Doctor Who, simply known as the Doctor within the context of the television series, is a Time Lord from the planet Gallifrey who travels through time and space in a ship called the TARDIS, which stands for Time and Relative Dimension in Space. The Doctor's TARDIS is stuck in the form of a 1960s-era British police box. The Doctor is always accompanied by companions on his adventures, many of whom hail from Earth, a planet that the Doctor has a particular affinity for. Over the years, the Doctor has been portrayed by 16 different actors due to the introduction of the concept of regeneration, an ability that a Time Lord has to heal and renew after fatal injury or sickness. While every new incarnation of the Doctor retains the memories of the previous incarnations, he in fact becomes a different person with a different personality. And each actor that has portrayed the Doctor brings their own unique take to the role. The Doctor that stars in this comic was portrayed by Tom Baker, the 4th Doctor, who to this day is still the longest tenured Doctor, starting his run in 1974 and ending in 1981. I believe Tom Baker was also the first Doctor to be widely known by fans outside of the United Kingdom. Certainly he was the first Doctor that I saw when I first started watching Doctor Who, back in the early 80s on the Public Broadcast System, a channel that often brought over television content from the UK to air in the US. Shows like Mystery, Masterpiece Theatre, Monty Python's Flying Circus, and Doctor Who. The Doctor has had a strong presence in comics throughout the years. The UK branch of Marvel Comics started publishing Doctor Who Weekly in 1979, and in 1980, it transitioned over to Doctor Who Monthly, which ran until 1984. In 1984, it transitioned again into Doctor Who Magazine, and finally ended its run in 1999. Starting in 1984, Marvel Comics in the US started republishing material from Doctor Who comics, with much of that material being published in color for the first time. This initial Doctor Who comic ran for 23 issues, and in Marvel's multiverse, it is said to take place on Earth number 5556. The issue we're looking at today reprints a story called Dragon's Claw, which ran in the UK Doctor Who Weekly, number 39 to number 45. The villains of the story, as you can see on the cover, are the Sontarans, an alien race which debuted in the episode The Time Warrior from 1973. Along with the 4th Doctor, this story features Sharon Davies, a companion created specifically for the comics. This issue was written by Steve Moore, with art by Dave Gibbons, an artist who would become more widely known for working with another Moore, Alan Moore, on the series Watchmen in 1986. I really like this cover, with the 4th Doctor, Sharon, and of course K9 in the grip of the Sontarans. You can see the TARDIS up in the corner box. At that time, Marvel was still doing the corner boxes with the artwork to help them stand out on the newsstands. And this was the Doctor Who logo that was popular at that time in the 80s. And this is some really nice artwork by Dave Gibbons. You can see his style, very much clean lines, lots of small detail, good use of blacks. Just overall a very striking image. Alright, inside front cover we have a little note from the editor, Jim Salicrup, and we have the credits on the side here. Stan Lee was still acting as Marvel's publisher at that time. I'm not sure how much day-to-day involvement he had in Marvel, but he still held the title of publisher. Jim Shooter was the editor-in-chief at that time, a very controversial figure in Marvel's history. And here we have a great-looking splash page. Doctor Who logo, the logo of the story, Dragon's Claw. Of the 5 holy peaks of China, Mount Sung stands in the center. Yet here within the ancient Shaolin monastery lurks a band of the most unholy beings in the universe. To the monks, they are known as the 18 Bronze Men, to the Doctor as Sontarans. And now the battle lines are being drawn. Men of bronze, fists of iron. One of the strengths of the concept of Doctor Who is his ability to travel anywhere in time and space. So you could get stories like this that are set anytime in Earth's history. You could get stories in outer space. The possibilities really are endless when dealing with Doctor Who. This story is continued from the previous issue, so we're right in the middle of the action. The Doctor has stumbled into the Sontaran base, located in the Shaolin Monastery, and the Sontarans are after him. He meets up with one of the Shaolin monks that he's befriended, and makes his escape. And here we can see his companion Sharon with K9 making an escape of their own, thanks to K9's stun beam. Sharon and K9 meet up with the Doctor and his companion, who we learn is named Chang. An alarm sounds, and the monks of the monastery race out to try to recapture the Doctor. So apparently the Shaolin monks are under the sway of the Sontarans, all except for the Doctor's friend Chang, who leaps into action and starts to fight his brothers to defend the Doctor and his companions. And K9 helps out again with that handy stun beam. K9 blasts a hole in the wall so that the group can escape. And then we have a little exposition via a conversation between the Doctor and Chang, where Chang is explaining about the Bronze Men, who are actually the Sontarans, and at the final test of the Shaolin monks, you have to face the Bronze Men, and only 3 or 5 out of 10 survive the meeting. And then they pass to the final chamber, where there is a cauldron and a fierce light. So the Doctor surmises that the fierce light is somehow planting post-hypnotic commands in the monks so that they will follow the orders of the Sontarans. One of the nice things about the art of Dave Gibbons here is that he does an excellent job portraying Tom Baker. Tom Baker has very distinctive facial features, as well as that unruly mop of hair. And Dave Gibbons is really able to capture that in these illustrations. So the Doctor makes a plan to travel up the mountain and meet with someone called Shang the Ancient, someone he's met before, probably in the previous issue. Meanwhile, a palace guard rides up with a message from the Emperor for Yu Kuang, the abbot of the monastery. And we learn that the abbot is in league with the Sontarans. He's not under mind control, he is working with them. And he says here, "We have word from the Emperor, and the simple-minded fool has played into our hands at last." So I'm not sure what the plan is there. We'll find out later on. Doctor Who meets up with the Ancient One, and he's trying to get some information, but the old man is hungry, so the Doctor gives him his last bag of jelly babies. The Fourth Doctor always had a bag of jelly babies on hand. That was his favorite sweet. And the Ancient One directs them to go to a place called the Jade Fairy Pool. Sharon says, "Look, Doctor, he was right." And the Doctor responds, "I should hope so, too. That was my last bag of jelly babies I bribed him with." You'll notice we haven't come across any ads in this issue yet. That's because this series was a direct market book. So back in the early 80s, comics were transitioning from newsstands to the direct market of comic shops, and direct market books had a higher cover price, and as such did not have any outside ads in them. And here we learn the evil plan of the abbot. He's going to take the Shaolin monks for an audience with the Emperor, and then while they're in the presence of the Emperor, they're going to use those post-hypnotic commands to have the monks assassinate him so that the abbot can take over. A good old-fashioned power grab. And here, after some investigation, the Doctor figures out the Sontarans part in this plan. Apparently the Emperor has a crystal that the Sontarans can use to create a transmitter big enough to contact their forces. So the assassination of the Emperor will serve 2 purposes. The Doctor formulates a plan. Chang meets up with one of his friends, and they learn that the monks are preparing to meet the Emperor. So the Doctor comes up with a plan to stop them. and that involves getting into the Hall of the Bronze Men, aka the headquarters of the Sontarans. So they go back to the monastery. Chang gets the attention of his monk brothers, and the Doctor and Sharon carry in the Ancient One, who turns out to be the actual abbot of the monastery. The Ancient One asks for the hall to be open, and Yu comes out and says, "Ah, but all I have to do is say the word, and you will become another of my killing slaves," referring to whatever post-hypnotic suggestion they've put into the monks' minds. But that may be part of the Doctor's plan, because he says, "Get ready to record this, K9." So Yu says the trigger phrase, "The Bronze Buddha has a heart of iron," which activates the monks, and they all begin to attack. But then K9 plays the phrase back again, and it snaps them out of their trance. So I'm not sure how that works. It doesn't seem wise to have the same trigger phrase turn them on and off, but there you go. So with the monks snapped out of their trance, Chang goes to fight Yu and his right-hand man Li. While Chang is fighting Li, Yu tries to go for the Ancient One to kill him, but it seems the Ancient One is more than capable of defending himself, and he flips Yu over, saying, "Huff, young whippersnapper." With Yu defeated, K9 then blasts a hole into the Sontaran base. Chang then runs in a killing frenzy, and the Doctor says, "No, Chang, you can't." But apparently he can, because Chang then takes on all the Sontarans single-handedly and kills them all. All's well that ends well, I guess. So the Ancient One is reinstated as abbot of the monastery, and as the Doctor is leaving, he says, "If I'm ever passing this time again, I'll drop off a bag of jelly babies for you." Next issue, the Doctor, Sharon, and K9 meet the Collector. Next, we get a feature called the Doctor Who Bookshelf. And this highlights something that I remember was very popular back in the 80s, the Doctor Who paperbacks by Target Books. This article highlights two of those books, Doctor Who and an Unearthly Child, and Doctor Who and the Daleks, which were two paperback prose stories featuring the adventures of the first Doctor, played by William Hartnell. And that feature continues with profiles on two more paperbacks, Doctor Who and the Keys of Marinus, and the Aztecs. And now we come to the issue's backup story, Abslom Daak, Dalek Killer, originally presented in Doctor Who Weekly number 18 and 19. The character of Abslom Daak was created for the comics. He was a human criminal who embarked on a crazed vendetta against the Daleks after they took the life of his only love. Throughout his history, he has encountered several different incarnations of the Doctor in the comics. This story is also written by Steve Moore, with art by Steve Dillon. Steve Dillon is most well known for his frequent collaborations with writer Garth Ennis on titles like Hellblazer, Preacher, and The Punisher. So this is part 2 of this story, and the text box tells us that this takes place in the 26th century. Abslom Daak, convicted murderer, has been exiled to the planet Mazum, recently conquered by the Dalek Empire. With no hope of return, his only task is to kill as many Daleks as he can before they kill him. Pretty simple setup. Whereas most of the time in his adventures the Doctor would outwit the Daleks, this guy chooses just to blast away at them. So here we have a female character, don't know her name yet. She's trying to convince Daak to leave with her, but he's content just standing there and blasting away at the Daleks. So she knocks him over the head and puts him on a sky sled to escape. The Daleks shoot down the sky sled, but Daak and his female companion manage to survive. She tries to convince him again to go with her as a means of escape, but he's more interested in killing Daleks. "All right, Daak, you brainless idiot, I know where we are, and I'll take you to what you want." So she leads him to a Dalek base ship. There, the Dalek spaceship, with a crew of 1,000. You can make one more futile, stupid, suicidal attack and throw your life away. Now you're talking, lady. Obviously, this guy has a death wish. Here we have the next part of the story. Daak is preparing to attack the Dalek ship, despite the protests of his female companion. But then she eventually decides to go with him. Apparently she loves him. That's nice. So I guess they'll die together. We have two Daleks that are searching for the pair, and Doc ambushes one of them, and he's got this big sword with like this serrated edge on it that apparently can cut through metal. So he basically beheads one of the Daleks, and then eventually shoots the other one. Inside the command ship, the Daleks detect the two humans and send out some ships to kill them. After their bombs miss the target, Doc says, these tin freaks are dumber than I thought. They're in close formation and packed with explosives. That's okay if you're blasting defenseless women and kids, but I've got teeth. So he shoots a missile and blows up all the ships. And now they finally seem to be entering the base ship. And apparently that story will be continued in next issue, because now we're at the end. We get the Bullpen Bulletins, which hypes up all of Marvel's current projects. And at this point in Marvel's publishing history, we were no longer getting Stan's soapbox from Stan Lee. It was Editor-in-Chief Jim Shooter who was sending the message to the fans via the Bullpen Bulletins. And in this Bullpen Bulletins, they were hyping up a new line called Star Comics. Star Comics was an all-ages line that Marvel launched back in the mid-1980s. It was a combination of original properties like Planet Terry, Wally the Wizard, and Top Dog, and licensed books like Fraggle Rock, Strawberry Shortcake, and Heathcliff. And around this time, they were also launching the third ongoing Spider-Man series, Web of Spider-Man. And the miniseries Marvel Superhero Secret Wars was just finishing up with issue number 12. And on this side, we get the letters page, titled Who Cares? And here we get something that we are very familiar with in fan communities, a letter complaining. Who cares? That's exactly what I said after reading issue 1 and 2 of Doctor Who. So this letter writer goes on to make a laundry list of everything they can improve on, because he does not care for their current output. So good for Marvel for publishing that. And they end their comment with, "We're sorry that you're not pleased with our edition." Very diplomatic of them. The letters page continues into the next page, and we get an ad for the Doctor Who magazine, which was published in the UK but was being made available to readers in the US at that time. And on the inside back cover, we get an ad for Marvel subscriptions. And the selling point for subscriptions at that time was saving money over the cover price. So if you subscribe to a title for 12 issues, it would cost you $6 instead of $7.80, a big $1.80 savings. And if you subscribe to multiple titles, you'd save even more. And which character was advertising those subscriptions? Well, it's Duke from G.I. Joe. How about that? That's it for my look at this issue of Doctor Who. It was an okay issue, but the Doctor has had so many adventures over the years in both television and comics, it's difficult for individual stories to really stand out. The selling point for these comic stories was that you could take the Doctor places that he couldn't go to in the show due to the television budget. The best part of this issue for me was the artwork of Dave Gibbons, who was able to put together a very visually interesting story with a lot more action than you'd usually see on the television show. And before we go, I'd like to give a shout out to one of the biggest supporters of this channel, who is also a huge Doctor Who fan. And that's John, aka A World Made of Cardboard. John and his wife are huge fans of Doctor Who, and he's been leaving supportive and positive comments on my videos since day one. John has his own channel called A World Made of Cardboard, and I will link to that channel in the description below. John has an affinity for papercraft toys, and his videos feature many vintage as well as modern papercraft sets that he has assembled. He's also created his own papercraft dioramas, and he provides those PDF files to anyone that wants them free of charge, so you can make your own papercraft dioramas at home for your action figures. So World Made of Cardboard, this video is dedicated to you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next issue.